Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're doing something a bit different. We're not just looking at sources. We want to hand you a mental tool, really, a framework.
Yeah, something powerful you can use pretty much instantly to upgrade how you think critically.
Exactly. It helps you spot hidden assumptions everywhere: history, culture, economics, you name it.
Think of it as like a filter you need in today's world with all the information flying around. We're going to show you how to become, well, a context detective.
Because most of us, myself included sometimes, we just assume the world we see now, the systems, the norms, even the big problems, we think they're kind of permanent.
Or inevitable. Yeah, like it was always meant to be this way.
And that creates huge blind spots, doesn't it?
Absolutely massive. If you think now is how it's always been, well, first, you can't really imagine how things could change effectively.
Right. And you definitely can't understand why people in the past acted the way they did. Their whole reality was different.
Precisely. Our current reality, it's just the latest reality. It's often quite recent, shaped by specific events, tech, environment, choices people made.
So, our mission today is to give you this three-step exercise, the shifting baseline exercise.
And the goal is to take that feeling, when something seems totally obvious, we want to turn that into an immediate trigger for investigation.
Okay, let's dive in. Step one, the common sense alarm.
This is the signal, your brain's little activation switch.
It kicks in the moment an idea feels, well, obvious, natural, just common sense. Or that classic phrase, it's always been this way.
That warm, fuzzy feeling where you just accept something without thinking, that's the alarm bell ringing.
It's your brain basically saying, move along, nothing to see here, I already know this.
And that's precisely when the critical researcher, the context detective in you, needs to step up and ask the key question.
Which is?
Okay, this thing that seems so utterly normal to me right now, my current baseline, has it really always been like this?
Let's make this concrete. A visual example. Think about a map of Europe. You pull one up now, you see all these countries, right? Sharp borders, fixed identities.
Looks totally normal. Almost inevitable, doesn't it? Like it was carved in stone.
That's the alarm.
Screaming loud and clear. You have to ask, was Europe always sliced up exactly like this, with these permanent-looking state lines?
And the answer is?
A big, emphatic no. Of course not. Before modern states really solidified, people's loyalties were much more local. Think clans, tribes, maybe a city you live near. Borders were fluid.
So why did that baseline shift? From local, fluid loyalties to these big, rigid states?
Well, it was largely driven by economics and administration, actually. Centralizing power helped rulers collect taxes and raise armies more efficiently.
Makes sense.
And, crucially, the growing merchant classes, the early capitalists, they needed things to be standardized. Same rules, same money, stable conditions over a large area to do business. Predictability.
So the border we see on the map today isn't some ancient truth.
Not at all. It's more like an administrative tool for modern power structures. Useful for them. That feeling that these borders are eternal, that's a pretty recent perspective, maybe the last couple hundred years, really.
Okay, that's a huge shift. Let's
Yeah.
apply that alarm principle to something maybe seemingly smaller, like knowledge itself, books.
Good one. Yeah. Okay, here's another baseline assumption many of us have. Step two now. The context detective work.
We look back.
Right. We might imagine, say, big cities in the Middle Ages, these centers of learning or faith. Surely they had massive libraries, right? Thousands of books, like in the movies.
Seems logical, obvious even. Alarm.
Exactly. Our baseline is today's world of easy information access. So what was the actual historical context back then?
What did the detective find?
Well, if you look at the most important places, major monasteries, maybe a really wealthy castle, say in the Byzantine Empire around the 9th or 10th century, their libraries often contained, wait for it,
How many?
only about 30 books, maybe 50 if they were exceptionally well-resourced, but rarely more.
30. 30 books. That's not a library. That's like the magazine rack in a dentist's waiting room. How is that even possible for a civilization known for preserving knowledge?
And this is where the context is everything. It wasn't because they were ignorant or didn't value books. It was purely about cost and effort. Insane levels of both.
Okay, explain.
A single book was literally a fortune. To make one decent-sized manuscript, you needed parchment. That's prepared animal skin.
Right.
Often required the skins of dozens, sometimes over 100 animals, sheep, calves, goats, just for one book.
Wow.
And then you had the scribe meticulously copying everything by hand. That could take years.
So the sheer physical resources were the bottleneck. The baseline for just the volume of knowledge was incredibly low because the tech made storing it and copying it unbelievably expensive.
Precisely. Books were luxury items, pure and simple. Not for the masses, and they didn't last.
What do you mean?
Well, pests, dampness, fire. Books naturally decay. They tend to disappear within about 200 years, unless they're perfectly preserved, and
Right.
preserving them meant
Copying them again. Endlessly. More cost, more effort.
exactly. It was a constant, expensive battle just to maintain what little they had.
Okay, let's jump to step 3, the Insights Explorer. What changed? What caused the rupture? When did our baseline shift from this extreme scarcity to, well, the volume we see today?
Simple.
Yeah.
The cost had to crash.
Ow.
Two big things. First, the widespread adoption of paper, much, much cheaper than skin. And then the big one, the printing press around the mid-1400s.
Gutenberg.
Right. That tech revolution didn't just make more books. It fundamentally changed society.
The sources we looked at mentioned something interesting here. If someone from, say, Roman times, maybe Asterix, living 2,000 years ago, walked into a modern library.
Yeah, the sheer number of books would be the first shock. Just unbelievable volume. But it wouldn't stop there.
What else?
Well, that explosion of print meant abstract ideas, standardized concepts could suddenly be mass-produced and spread everywhere. Think legal ideas, political ideas, economic rules, like the modern, very absolute idea of private property, what lawyers sometimes call dominium.
Wait, so cheap books helped spread the idea of owning things absolutely?
You could argue that, yeah. For much of history, ownership, especially of land, was way more communal or conditional. The idea that one person could own a plot of land forever, do whatever they wanted with it, no matter what the community needed, that would have seemed bizarre to many pre-modern people.
So even our basic legal concepts are tied to this technological baseline shift.
Our ability to even conceive of these standardized absolute rights, let alone enforce them, is partly a product of mass printing making those ideas common currency.
Okay, this is getting really deep. The next baseline shift you mentioned tackles something fundamental, human nature itself.
Right. Let's set the alarm for this one. The common idea that before money, people bartered. Traded object for object. Because, the story goes, humans are just inherently selfish.
Right.
Always needing something back immediately. How else could an economy even work without coins?
Okay, the alarm is definitely going off now. That sounds very common sense.
It's hammered into us from childhood, the barter myth. But anthropologists looking at actual societies, they found that widespread direct barter is surprisingly rare, historically.
When did it happen then?
Mostly between strangers, people who didn't trust each other, or sometimes in places where a coin system had collapsed temporarily. But within most communities, that wasn't the main way things worked.
So what was the historical baseline for how people exchange things within their own groups?
Overwhelmingly, for most of human history, in communities without cash, people shared. Fundamentally.
Shared? How did that function economically?
It wasn't about an immediate swap. It was based on debt and trust, but not like bank debt, more like social obligation. You needed something. You asked. People generally helped out.
Why? What was in it for them?
Helping others actually boosted your social standing. It made you feel useful, valuable, integrated into the community. Reputation was huge.
But hang on. The skeptic in me asks, how do you build a house or organize a big project if it's all just casual sharing? Wouldn't people just take advantage? Slack off?
That's a fair question. And it highlights the difference between that historical baseline and our modern market one. Instead of direct barter, you had things like gift economies or long-term debt economies. If you needed help building your house, the community pitched in. You didn't owe them money necessarily, but you accrued a social debt, an obligation to help them later or contribute in other ways.
And if you slacked off or took too much,
your reputation tanked. People might mock you, avoid you, maybe even kick you out in extreme cases. Social pressure was the enforcement mechanism, not a legal contract for every little thing.
The sources brought up that fascinating example of Kondiaronk, the Native American visitor to Europe in the 18th century.
Yeah, he was apparently just baffled and outraged by European society. He saw people begging in the streets, starving, while others were clearly very wealthy. He couldn't understand why the rich didn't just share their surplus. For him, letting members of your own community starve wasn't just an economic issue. It was a complete breakdown of social and moral duty.
Because his baseline was different.
Exactly. His baseline, reflecting much of human history, was that communities were designed to ensure nobody within that group had to beg just to survive.
Okay, let's apply step 3, the insight. If our deep historical baseline was often sharing and communal obligation.
Then this modern idea that we must exchange money for absolutely everything, every service, every interaction, well, it starts to look less like an inevitable human nature thing.
And more like a relatively recent development.
Yeah. It makes you realize that defining humans only as selfish, calculating profit maximizers just ignores huge swaths of evidence. Think about all the unpaid care work that keeps society running right now.
Parents raising kids, volunteers, teachers and nurses going way beyond their job description.
All that effort, that goodwill, it completely contradicts the narrow capitalist definition of value or exchange. Our shift away from that sharing baseline kind of forced us to devalue all that non-monetary contribution, even though we still rely on it.
So our economic story ignores the reality of how much free relationship-based work we all do and depend on. That only becomes clear when you shift the baseline.
Wow. Okay, let's pivot quickly to two more big shifts. First, community structure, the family.
Alarm. The nuclear family, parents, kids, maybe the dog feels like the absolute default, timeless, natural.
Context detective time. How recent is that really?
Shockingly recent, according to the sources.
Totally. Go back just over 100 years ago, especially outside big cities. The baseline was the extended family. You lived with uncles, aunts, cousins, grandparents, often all under one roof or extremely nearby. Kinship was broad and deep. If you had issues with your parents, well, there were probably 5 other adults right there in your daily life who formed a support network.
So why did that change so fast? What broke up the extended family?
Mostly industrialization and moving to cities for work. People had to relocate, often far from their home villages. Those tight, local, extended family ties got broken.
You couldn't just bring 20 relatives with you to a tiny city apartment.
Exactly. And that close-knit support system dissolved. It wasn't really a conscious choice for more freedom. It was driven by economic necessity. And it led to a lot more social isolation, creating the modern, historically unusual, and sometimes quite fragile nuclear family baseline we just accept now.
Okay, from family to the nation state again. The alarm goes off when we think of, say, France or Spain as these ancient entities, these communities people have always felt loyal to and died for.
Right. The context detective digs in and finds that intense modern nationalism, this idea you owe your primary loyalty, even your life, to the nation that really took off with the Industrial Revolution, mostly in the last 200 years in Europe.
What drove that? What created that unified national feeling?
Several things working together. Mass communication was huge. The printing press, again. Spreading common languages, newspapers creating shared narratives over wide areas.
Okay.
Then infrastructure trains, better roads. Suddenly people from different regions were moving around, mixing, needing a common identity beyond their village.
And the state itself played a role.
Big time. Things like mandatory schooling, teaching a standardized national history and language, mandatory military service, forcing people from different regions to serve together under one flag, bureaucracy creating unified systems.
So before all that, loyalty was where?
Much more local. Your village, your family, maybe a local lord, or very importantly, your shared religion. The sources mention that big Spanish revolt in 1521.
It was fought for Castile, not Spain.
Exactly. Spain back then was more like a geographical area, maybe like how we think of the Balkans today. Not a single unified thing most people felt deep, personal, fight-to-the-death loyalty towards.
Yeah.
Our modern baseline of national identity is very much a product of technology and state building in the last couple of centuries.
Okay, let's take this whole shifting baseline idea and apply it somewhere completely different. Outside human society, the natural world, ecology.
Ah, yes. This one might be the most, well, unsettling application.
The alarm sounds when
someone dives on a reef today, maybe sees a few fish and thinks, wow, look at all this life. So much better than the city.
That sounds positive, though.
It sounds positive, but it's a classic example of shifting baseline syndrome in nature.
Okay, context detective time. What's the comparison point?
The comparison point is what that same spot looked like, say, 200 years ago or 500.
Yeah.
And a person from back then would look at what we call abundance today and see an ecological desert, maybe a wasteland.
Why such a drastic difference?
Decades, centuries really, of massive industrial fishing, pollution, coastal development. We just hammered marine ecosystems. The sheer amount of life, the biomass, and the variety of species have plummeted.
So our baseline for what a healthy ocean even looks like has just kept dropping.
Dramatically. Generation by generation, we forget what true abundance was. We accept a degraded state as the new normal.
Can you give a specific example, something tangible?
Sure. Go back a couple of centuries, it wasn't unusual to see huge schools of fish, really large sharks, seals, dolphins, right near the coast of places like the Mediterranean. Oyster reefs near major European ports were enormous, filtering huge amounts of water, packed with life.
And
Now, seeing a seal near many of those coasts is a rare event, something people celebrate. Seeing a truly massive, complex, old reef is becoming rarer and rarer. We get excited about 3 dolphins returning to an area that used to have thousands.
So we're essentially grading ourselves on a curve based on a damaged past, not the historical potential. We've lowered the bar for success without even knowing it.
And that's incredibly dangerous, because it means we consistently underestimate the scale of the environmental loss. If you don't use the context detective to understand the historical baseline of natural abundance, your conservation goals might end up being fundamentally, well, mediocre, aiming too low.
Okay, let's bring this all together. What's the big takeaway for someone listening? Why does this shifting baseline exercise matter so much?
The whole point is to help you realize that your current perspective on everything, family, money, nature, politics, it's just that, one perspective. Shaped by your time and place, it's not some inevitable destiny.
It's not the only way things could be.
Exactly. And knowing that is maybe the most powerful tool for genuine critical thinking. It forces you to look for the turning points, the shifts, the historical accidents that created the world you take for granted. You stop seeing things as inevitable and start seeing them as contingent, changeable even.
And you've given us the framework. Step 1, the common sense alarm. That feeling of obviousness is your trigger.
Step 2, the context detective, you dig in, research what it was really like before the baseline shifted.
And step 3, the insights explorer, you analyze how that shift impacts how we think and act now.
Right. So maybe we can leave you with one final thought to chew on. Connecting an ancient human instinct to a very modern baseline.
Okay.
Think about our craving for sugar, sweetness.
Can't get enough sometimes.
Right. That powerful instinct to seek out and consume sugary things evolved over millennia when calories were scarce. Finding ripe fruit, honey, that was a huge survival advantage. You needed to load up when you could. That instinct helped keep us alive.
Makes sense. Fight for every calorie.
But today, our modern baseline is completely different. We live in an environment of constant, cheap, industrially produced, well, sugar overload. It's everywhere.
Yeah, definitely not scarce anymore.
So that exact same evolutionary instinct, the one that was vital for survival on the old baseline of scarcity,
Now works against us. It drives unhealthy eating habits in this new baseline of abundance.
precisely. Which leads to the core question this whole exercise prompts. What other instincts, what other ways of thinking or feeling evolved for a completely different human baseline? Maybe a baseline of scarcity or intense community dependence or low technology are now mismatched, maybe even actively hindering us in our modern world of global information, relative isolation, and often overwhelming abundance.
That's a deep one to ponder. What parts of our old programming are tripping us up now?
Something to think about.
Definitely. Dive deep into that one. We'll
Yeah.
talk next time.